Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Chacko, and I'm here this afternoon with Susan Riggs. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
We are very excited because we're here today to present to you the eighth episode out of a total of 10 in how to engage with a messy world. And I think our 10 episodes are right on time. We're recording this on July 18th, 2024. And there's a lot going on. As I've said before, this program kind of evolved out of Susan and my relationship as friends, as prayer partners, as somebody that we share many ideas. And she works as an integral coach, and she's available through her website, which is riggsintegralcoaching.org. And I'm heading this program as a feature, as a program, as part of my website and my volunteer ministry, and that's called Serenity and Health.com. And we have a really timely topic today. And I just think I'm going to turn it right over to you, Susan. So,
Great. Thank you. Yes, the world continues to be very messy and volatile. There's a lot of uncertainty. And one of the things that I find helpful for engaging with the world is the concept of these three basic human needs of security, approval, and control. One way to look at what all human beings want is outlined by the Conscious Leadership Group, which I've mentioned before, and by other thinkers. And they put it this way: everything we want, all the happiness we're reaching for, or all the unhappiness we're trying to get away from, has an underpinning of one or more of these three psychological needs. Here's my very low-tech visual aids. So we have the words to look at: security, approval, and control. So security is basically about our feelings around survival. Do I feel safe? If I feel safe, my perception is that my security need is being met. If I don't feel safe, that may be a fact. There may be actual violence or danger, and I need to change something in order to get away from that. But often it's not a physical fact, it's a psychological perception. And if I don't feel safe and it's a psychological thing, I may try to get more money or more security cameras or whatever I think will make me feel safe. So that's security. Approval has to do with belonging. Do I believe that people like me? Am I acceptable? Am I included? And if I don't believe that I am included, that I have approval, I may go around trying to please everyone and earn their love.
oh, yes, Susan. And there's such a tendency too to try and earn people's approval by our appearance or our clothes or our physical things we own that show we think that we'll be more approved.
Yes, yes, it's a very deep need and an urgent drive. And then control is what we reach for if we can't meet the other two needs. If I can't feel safe and included, I will try to control my situation or control the people around me. So I might try to control my own body and behavior by exercising more, and control my thoughts through self-improvement, or I might try to control other people through rules or laws or bullying or violence. We see this in the world. So a slightly silly example of control in my own life is that I've noticed over the years that I really like making spreadsheets. And when I start to feel overwhelmed at work, I will find a reason to make a spreadsheet or work on an existing spreadsheet. It doesn't matter whether it's a budget spreadsheet or a project tracking or some kind of data collection. I just feel calmer when I'm working on a spreadsheet because the little cells are within my control. And so I feel calmer.
That's really good. I suppose maybe that's my version of that might be when I'm stressed out with a big project or in my whole life I've done this. When it feels out of control and too much, I frequently deal with that by stopping and cleaning and organizing my desk, and then somehow I feel more in control. I guess maybe that's to fill that need. I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, very much. Some people do it with housework, some people do it with sports, and there's nothing wrong with any of these. If they help us feel better, that's fine. It's just really good to be aware that we're doing it so that we have some choices. All right, so one of the reasons that our world is so polarized right now is that millions of people are feeling unsafe or excluded. And they're trying desperately to find this security, approval, and control. So the perception of being unsafe or excluded, some cases, is accurate in literal terms, and then we need to change something. But there are other cases where it's not accurate, it's not a realistic appraisal, but a trauma response, or it's just a misperception. Humans do this. We perceive a threat where there isn't one. And learning to tell the difference in ourselves is really important. Is there an actual physical threat to my safety, or is this a perception that I'm acting on without real data? And some of the ideas that we've talked about in earlier episodes are very helpful here, like understanding the difference between narratives and verifiable facts, like feeling our feelings, like being curious rather than getting attached to being right. So there are tools that we can bring to this discernment process. And the fact that millions of people are feeling like their most basic needs aren't being met, their psychological needs, means we need to do something about this. And what do we do about it? Part of the answer is that it's really important for all of us to be kind. This sounds basic, but it's so important in the world. We need to build community and connection and offer welcoming inclusion and psychological safety to people wherever we can to help offset this sense of fear. Everyone has these needs to feel safe and accepted. And when I see people acting in ways that I deeply disagree with, it really helps me to know that they're acting out of one of these needs. That they have a need that they're acting on. They're not just being intentionally destructive, but they're acting to try to meet a need that they may not understand very well. And in some cases, I may need to try to stop someone from doing something that I think is damaging, is harmful. But I can stop it while still understanding where that need comes from, and maybe offer people a different way to try to meet their needs. Yeah, it's just better to act from a place of understanding.
Yes. And with your example, just like sometimes you're supposed to reach out and do something, there are other times for your own safety and peace of mind, and you have to step back and let it go.
Yes, absolutely.
It's hard discernment for us these days.
Yes. Yeah, and you and I have been talking a little bit earlier too about the fact that we sometimes try to meet these needs when we're aiming in the wrong direction, and we may think we need more security cameras, but there's never enough. We can
Right.
never
That
meet that
right.
need.
Right. That's just a huge point, because that's it's a need, and we keep doing more and more things to solve it, but it doesn't solve it. There is not enough money. There is not a high enough wall. We can't be beautiful enough. We can't um, avoid aging. I mean, there's just too many real things in life that happen that make our expectations to personally fill these needs. It's not humanly possible, which I'd like you to talk about how we deal with those needs. You said they're not bad, they're good, they're normal, and yet it seems like they cause a lot of harm, like we distort them, like we mess up. So how are they good? Help me
Well,
understand.
it's not that so much that they're good as that they're built in, they're hardwired. We will always have these needs. What is really powerful in this concept is to start to understand and experience that internally these needs are already met. We already have all of the security, approval, and control that we actually need in psychological terms. They come from inside us, and this is a huge shift. So, assuming that we're not in physical danger and we're feeling fear for psychological reasons. Um, the mystical traditions of all the world's religions speak to this idea, which is, what if I already have security, approval, and control? What if they're already a built-in part of me that no person or circumstance can take away? And that doesn't mean that we escape pain or illness or death, but it means we can be at peace in the middle of it all.
So
And
that sounds that
sorry,
no,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say that sounds really good. Do we know that? How do we recognize that? I mean, I have some ideas on ways to achieve it, uh, which I can share, but what would you say? How do you get there?
Yes, there are practices that people can try on to experiment with experiencing this as a truth. We're not trying to talk ourselves into it through our brains. We're trying to play with the idea that if this is a real thing, how do I experience that? And and we don't have to necessarily believe it. We can play with it. What if this is true?
Yeah.
And I think you have experience with that in some of your work.
Right. Well, I did want to share because I find this topic really, really important, sometimes a little confusing, but you know, most people understand that meditation practices help you find peace, find God within. And I think this is in the direction of where what you're talking about, that it's in us already. And I practice a Christian form of meditation called centering prayer, which I believe has helped me understand all this, and not just understand it in my head, but live it and feel it a little bit more. And there's a welcoming, I mean, there's a related prayer practice that contemplative outreach talks about, and it's called the welcoming prayer. And when you started talking about this, it's kind of startling to me how similar it is, because in the welcoming prayer, we are advised during the day, anytime during the day, if we feel something, maybe we're getting tight, maybe we're getting irritated, maybe we're getting judgmental, whatever, maybe it's a good thing that we are mindful. We are mindful of the moment. We welcome that moment. That's the mindfulness part. Probably there's a breath involved there, would make it good. And then we let go. We let go of our desire for control, security, and I'm
Approval.
security and approval. Thank you.
Yeah,
Because many times our irritation or our impatience, it comes from needing those things, right? So you let go of it and go on with your life, and that's a kind of a prayer practice designed to be repeated over and over and over during the day, and it's the same exact language you're using, and it's just fascinating. I think probably many forms of faith traditions and other, like your conscious leadership, it's a common thinking no matter what format or language is used.
exactly. It's a wisdom that spans a lot of different traditions. And so you have a faith-based way of exploring and experiencing this. And there's a secular one in the book that we'll reference in the show notes, the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, which has a six-step process that people practice, again, several times a day, and just work through noticing that they're wanting something. Okay, what do I want? Notice the wanting and don't fight it. Don't try to beat it down, but just say, oh, okay, there it is. I will welcome it. Looking underneath it to see which of these three needs is the underpinning. What am I fundamentally wanting? Maybe I'm wishing I've had a nicer boss or a more cooperative neighbor. What's underneath that? Maybe I'm looking for more security or more approval. Um, Identifying the underlying need brings us a little bit more wisdom and perspective. And then again, we realize that we think there's a gap between what we have and what we want, but there really isn't. What we want is already there, it's already in us. And so we can first welcome the wanting, knowing that it's normal, but then we can release it, knowing that it's actually erroneous. It's already here.
You know what's fascinating about this, and I've struggled with it, not struggled, but become aware of it, is that these are not things you can study and learn. This is not a cognitive exercise. And I mean, really, unless we take some time and slow down and have some solitude and silence and reflect on some of these things, I don't think we'll ever, embody it and live it, be able to live it.
Yeah. If it helps any, people can think of this as being like a sport or a musical instrument. You don't get there without practice.
Yeah.
And the practices can be truly transformational. My hope is that people will take this on and work with it, and it literally changes how we engage with the whole world.
Hmm. Hmm. I think mindfulness is a big part of it. I think I'll add on the show notes a mindfulness based stress reduction program that I've just learned about that happens to be free and online and very, very high quality. So maybe we'll put that on there too. It's a totally a secular program, but deeply spiritual. And I think our listeners would be impressed by that as well.
Yeah, wonderful. This kind of work can bring about a really fundamental shift in how we interact with the world.
Onsounds good. I'm all for that. I think starting with me, right? That's the only way it can
Yeah.
work. That's the
Yep, yep.
only way it can work. Well, thank you so much, Susan. This is a lot to chew on and reflect on. And I know it got my mind and going as I reflected on these topics. So I thank everybody who's listened, and please look at the show notes and check out some of the resources. And remember that Susan and I would love to hear from you with questions, with comments. If you listen to this and find it helpful, please let us know. It's available on YouTube. It's available through my website, and it's also on Facebook. And share it if you found it useful. So I thank everyone who's out there, and I thank you very much, Susan. So have a good day. Bye bye. I didn't mean to switch camera. It's still recording. The there it is.